Today's episode is from our archives from 4 years ago in our first in-season series for coach and coordinator. And Mike Emendorfer, head football coach at Wisconsin-Platteville, joined me to talk about some of the things that they do in season. Since he joined us on the podcast, he was inducted into the Wisconsin Football Coaches Hall of Fame in 2019, and he continues to do a great job for the Pioneers. So here's our episode with Coach Mike Emendorfer.
Our guest today is head football coach at University of Wisconsin-Platteville, Mike Emendorfer. Mike Emendorfer has spent 19 seasons now at the helm of Wisconsin-Platteville, and he really has become known for what he does on the field with his offense, really breaking the record books at Platteville and being on the tops of college football as far as his team performing on offense. Coach, we appreciate you taking the time during the season to join us again on the podcast.
Well, I appreciate the opportunity to talk about the great game of football, Keith, and everything you do to promote it.
Coach, let's focus a little bit on some of the things you do during the season to add some wrinkles. You've been known for your creativity and throwing some crazy formations and different things out there. What's your approach for looking for those opportunities in a game plan to add a wrinkle or two?
Well, I think it's twofold. When you add a wrinkle, you're thinking about the upcoming game, and that's the most important game. But also you're thinking down the road of what things you want to put on film for future opponents for them to prepare for. So it's twofold where we might add a wrinkle or formation that we think will give us the advantage in numbers or leverage or in personnel. Could be unbalanced. It could be trips into the boundary, quads, whatever might be the case. But it's also with a thought process, how is this going to affect future opponents while they're scouting us? How much preparation will they have to take to prepare for this new wrinkle?
Oftentimes, I know when I've looked at those things as an offensive coordinator, those things were on the shelf for a while. We were preparing them for maybe a week or two or even later in the season. How do you start to get those, though, into your mental process as far as, hey, you know what, right now is a good time to get this into the game, get it on film?
I think we all go into the season with a general plan, a basic formation, but as we get into the season, your personnel will dictate what you're capable of doing and expanding. Certain years you might be more no-back if you're a 10 personnel because you might have a quarterback that's better fitted for a no-back set, or we have a H-back formation, a tight end type of thing, and we might have a personnel. So it sort of dictates on your personnel, as you go through the season, what they feel most confident with, especially at the quarterback position. We're going to find out what he feels most comfortable with versus what I feel is finding out what I think our quarterback can execute and understand and be able to deliver on positive outcomes with the creativity portion of it.
How much of that creativity is sparked by, watching opponent film and maybe seeing something that someone else did and finding a way to fit that into, a wrinkle or something you can do to adjust your offense?
Well, I'm always intrigued, and as coaches, some are not willing to admit this, but we all copy and paste. We all take ideas. Now, you might take a certain formation and then apply it into your own method of attacking. But a lot of it is, watching game film. You might see something on a Saturday night when Alabama's playing against Clemson or something like that, or you're watching your future opponents and, you see what they're doing with certain formations and are having success. So, I think that we all will take bits and pieces, but you've got to stay true to your basic your basic core principles as an offense. So, as we take new ideas, I have found out over the years, every Sunday, we'll have a list, me and the offense coordinator, of 6 or 7 different ideas. But the reality is we're going to pick 2 and identify those 2 because it's too hard to teach new concepts, new plays. A lot of coaches are failed in that area of trying to teach too much on a Tuesday and Wednesday, and then you get into game time and you realize you're going to go back to your bread and butter stuff and focus on those things. But we're going to have 1 or 2 new wrinkles each and every game.
Obviously, and I'm glad you brought it up, the teaching time for the players, both in the classroom and then the repetitions on the field, are important to get some of these things to work. How do you weigh that cost benefit ratio of adding something to your attack?
Well, when we're adding something, is it comparable to something else that we're already doing? Is it similar read for the quarterback, similar route combination? It might be a tag on a backside route combination, but the front side staying the same, so it's only half the play. And while teaching it, especially if it's a passing scheme, is it a high-low read concept? Is it a triangle reads concept? Is it a isolation read concept? We try to identify that and understand that it's very similar to, say, our flat curl concept. And though we're changing people around, it's a very similar read for the quarterback. So, it's not going to require that much time. But if it's a whole new concept with a whole new read progression, which I've made this mistake thinking I can teach it, we find out that, that quarterback might only get 5 or 10 reps throughout the week. He's not prepared for a game-like situation. And so, we try to make sure that when we add something new, creative, that it relates to something that we currently are doing.
Coach, as we take some of those things into a game, I know a lot of guys prepare an opening script. What's your method for beginning a game to start to flesh out the game plan and see how the opponent is matching up to what you've previously seen on film?
Well, I'm not a big believer in scripting in practice. We've talked about this a couple months ago on another podcast, but in the game, we'll go in with the idea of a certain formation or two, and we want to see how they're going to defend certain formations. And really, the first quarter is all about feeling out your opponent. Then second quarter is getting rhythm, and third quarter is making certain adjustments, and the fourth quarter is really situational football. But really, the first quarter is just feeling out your opponent and seeing what they have planned for certain formations, so then you can figure out where you have the best matchups. And really it comes down to that, the best matchups, one-on-one situations where you feel you have the advantage.
Obviously, getting all the information as a play caller is important. It's something that maybe as coaches we don't practice enough, especially as staffs evolve or change or personnel change. How do you break up your game day communication, and what are some of the key things that you want your coordinators on either side of the ball to get as far as information in order to be able to make both timely and proper decisions?
I think that any coach that's gone through the journey of play calling will tell you this, that there's certain games that you see the field and you're in rhythm. And you just see it, and you're able to make adjustments, and everything is clicking. And then there's certain games you're just not seeing it, for whatever reason. You're not feeling it, you're not seeing it. So, in our system, I have a great offensive coordinator, and he and I will go back and forth play calling. And, that's something I really believe in, and I even do that defensively as well, is that if you're out of sync, if I'm out of sync and I'm the one playing calls, I'm going to turn to Ryan and saying, hey, you got the next series. I'm going to stand back and get a better feel for things. I'm just not feeling it, and I'm going to watch. And, so we have a dual play calling system. It's not typical. You're saying who's calling who. I guess as a head coach, I can always step in and make that decision and saying, okay, I'm seeing it better. But I've also learned to drop my ego, where my offense coordinator is seeing the field better and he's making better adjustments than I would, then, he's going to take over for a series or two or three or four because he's more in sync with what they're doing than I am. And some games I am, and sometimes Ryan Munz is. And so it just depends on the game and the flow of the game.
And obviously, play calling is as much of an art as it is a science. When you look at, over the years, making those adjustments, do you feel like it's easier for you to say, okay, I got to maybe switch some things up in my thought process as a play caller versus, hey, I need to get these guys together on the sideline and maybe draw up some adjustments for them to make on the field? What do you feel is the best approach to, keeping things in rhythm and making those in-game adjustments?
Well, I think you can't go in stubborn. We go in with certain game plans feeling that this formation is going to work along with this package of plays. But, for whatever reason, we didn't teach it well enough. We've had some errors, or they have a better matchup. And, we feel we're outnumbering them, and we can't, have success with our bubble screen game. I'm just using it as an example. When we can't block that same backer we're not going to be stubborn with it. We're going to move on to something else and find other ways, or move it away from him. That seems to be, his guy, that their guy is better than our guy in that position. And we just didn't anticipate that in our film breakdown. So sometimes I've erred in that fact, where I've been so stubborn as a young coach, where, this should work. We game plan it and it's not working. We'll worry about that on Sunday. Right now, we've got to make an adjustment and find something that does work.
Coach, when you're looking at those things after the game, and you want to have enough tools in your toolbox coming into every game. Do you find that there's a certain amount of overage you're looking for? Brian Billick obviously talked about the importance of keeping your game plan within some constraints, because whether you script practice or not, there's limited reps available. What have you found to be helpful in looking at that, both post game and then going into the next week?
We call it our dirty dozen. We have a series of 12 plays. It's our bread and butter. And I found out that in crucial situations, especially if the defense is confusing us, we're going to simplify things and go back to our basics in our game plan. And, we might have these exotic plays and with all these tags and everything like that. But sometimes just calling for vertical or a simple smash route is your best option. And I think coaches, we try to be too creative at times, and I'm speaking to myself in this sense, is that I'm always looking, to add a tag and make this adjustment. And sometimes it's just, let's be simple. And, the smash route concept is a great concept. We've drilled it from day one. Our quarterbacks understand the read. Let's stay with the smash concept versus trying to add some tags off it to screw over the defense. Really what's happened is it's confused us. I think that as you could build your game plan, understand what you've done from the spring and throughout summer camp, and those basic routes, those basic concepts has received majority of the attention in 7-on-7 and team period. And you got to go back to those things and have confidence in your base stuff.
And we mentioned, adjusting things week to week. As the season goes on, and especially as we get into the second half of the season, what types of changes are you making in practice to, maybe make things a little bit more mental, keep guys sharp, not grind them down? I mean, certainly, as the weeks go on, we want to preserve their bodies and have them fresh on game day. What types of things do you look to do that maybe are a little bit different than what you've done in the beginning of the season in terms of practice?
Well, I think we've reduced, as I've gotten older in my experience, I believe in the energy level, and I want practice to feel like it's a reward, not a punishment, and I believe in more quality. And so instead of running the play 20 times at a fast-paced tempo, let's get 5 or 10 at high quality. And, I think that we get caught up in the number of times we run that play in practice versus the quality of it. So we look at the quality part of it. And, if our practice needs to be an hour and 40 minutes, hour and 45 minutes, but we feel the quality of the reps are there, then, I feel good going into that week. So I don't need a magic number of saying we've got to rep this out 40 times. I worry more about the quality of the reps and creating competition drills, breaking it down where we feel like the quarterback and the receivers and the offensive line and the running backs have been presented the best scenario that they're going to see on Saturday.
You mentioned, the situational drills, the competition. What types of things do you do to really bring that thought process, especially situationally, into the players' minds as you're repping these things out during practice?
Well, we always have in our team period and different competition drills, we bring the chains out so they can see the first down. So we're going to actually move the ball and put them in situations on 3rd and 1 to 2nd and 8 to 3rd and 15, and they can actually see it with the sticks. So we use that, we've been using that for the last 7 or 8 years, and that visual part of it where they can see that they need 3rd and 8 to get the first down, so that receiver knows that if he's running a comeback, he has to push up to 9 or 10 and catch the ball or whatever might be the concept. So situational drills, but also using the sticks. We'll go 2nd and 8 is one of my favorite drills with the offense, where you got 2 plays to get a first down, and we don't know how third down is going to, after the 2nd 8 against our scout team or our number 1 defense, depends on what we're doing in practice. We don't know what the result is going to be, and we're going to have to figure that out on the run. If it's 3rd and 3 or 3rd and 10, and be able to make those decisions. And obviously we're going to cover red zone situations throughout the week coming out, and just try to prepare our players as much as possible. I think a good indicator of a good offense is how many drives that you have over 60 yards, throughout the course of the season and throughout the game. And to me, if you're having drives over 60 yards, that means your players are executing, you're staying away from penalties, there's a good rhythm in play calling. To me, that's a good indication of a well-oiled offensive machine, is those drives over 60 yards.
Are there a certain amount of drives over 60 yards a game that you're looking for as a target number?
Yeah, anything. I think in the past, I think most teams are looking at somewhere having at least in a 10-game season, we're looking to have at least 2 good years. We're going to have 3 a game over 60 yards, because the percentages are very low that you're going to drive the ball 70 yards. We've had games where, obviously we scored a lot of points, and some games we haven't. But, I look at it that if you're somewhere between 20 and 25 in the season, that's good. We were over 30 last year, which was a very efficient offensive output, I think, when you can have over 30 drives over 60 yards.
Coach, this is some great information on, offense and how to approach some of these things as we go through the course of the season. But looking at everything you do, what would you say is the, you've spent all the preseason, you're into the season now. What would you say is the one thing you guys do in season that gives your team the winning edge?
I think for us, we've changed our philosophy, is that we stay away from contact. Our running backs are not getting hit. Our DBs, our linebackers are not tackling. We stay fresh. So I think that's the winning edge. And, I know there's different philosophies out there, but, I know as a head coach, I'm a lot better when I'm playing my best players on Saturday. And though you might think you're going in the game on Saturday with your best players, but if they ding their shoulder on Wednesday's practice because you're doing a live inside run period, he's going to overcompensate for that ding shoulder, that linebacker or that receiver. So I think for us, it's our approach to practice that we're going to have no live contact at all. And especially in today's world with concussions, we prevent that at all costs. And I think that's the winning edge, is that our players, as well as the shorter down practices, we're going an hour and 45 minutes, but at high efficiency, up-tempo type of thing. Those are some of the things I think it helps us, giving us sort of an edge in winning.
Well, Coach, I certainly...
And great players. Let me say this: if you're a coach that's winning football games out there, it's not that schemes are important. You're winning because you have great players, and we've won a lot of games the last 6 to 7 years here because we've had very, very good football players.
Well, you certainly put them in the right positions to do the things that they can do, Coach. And I appreciate you sharing all you did today on today's podcast and taking time during the season. And it's always great to talk football with you.
Thanks, Keith.
Thank you again for listening to the Coaching Coordinator Podcast. We have new episodes for you 3 times a week. On Monday, I go through my adjustments and things that I saw over the course of the weekend. Tuesday, we're joined by Coach Noel Mazzoni, and Coach and I talk about some of the things that are trending, as well as some ideas and how you can implement those with your team. And then the other live one is a weekend episode that I air on Saturdays, and it has something again to do with things in season, things you can do right now that will benefit your team. We also pull out 2 podcasts from our archives from year 1. In year 1, we were growing. Not a lot of you were listening then, so some great content that you probably haven't gotten back to. We want to put right in front of you right now, things that are important in season. So thank you again for listening. Continue to follow us and what we're doing at coachingcoordinator.com, and follow me on Twitter at Coach K. Grabowski.